The Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, always good to see you. Welcome back, sir.
Yep, thanks for having me.
You know, Zoran Mamdani just marked 100 days in office earlier this month. Now he's quoting rappers to try and salvage his failing agenda. What's it going to take for Republicans, your fellow Republicans, to get back on the common sense agenda? Because I see you have this six-penny plan you talk about, which seems to stand in stark contrast to all the spending that's going on, sir.
You know, I think the people in New York will discover about socialism when they've taken over the grocery stores. They're going to discover what Milton Friedman said. Milton Friedman said that if you put the government in charge of the Sahara Desert, within a short period of time, there'll be a shortage of sand. So when there's no food on the grocery store shelves of the government store that apparently is going to cost $30 million, you know, most of the time that the government's tried owning grocery stores, it hasn't worked. There was a story behind the Iron Curtain where a guy goes into the store and he says, "Are you the store that doesn't have any eggs?" And the guy says, "No, we're the store that doesn't have any toilet paper. The store that doesn't have any eggs is across the street." But it was a joke because there was always shortages. That's what happened in Venezuela, where the average person lost 30 pounds because of a shortage of food. Yeah. Meanwhile, they sat atop more oil than Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, I don't think socialism is going to work well. I hope my party will begin to oppose, you know, the government spending that leads to government ownership of businesses. But we're hurting right now, and the debt gets bigger and bigger as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the president, shifting to foreign affairs, did something about Venezuela. Now we've got at least some control of that oil. He started this conflict in Iran, obviously, has now extended the U.S.-Iran ceasefire indefinitely, and says it's possible peace talks could resume by Friday. You've been a critic from the beginning. How do you think we get out of this now? What would be your plan to move this forward, sir?
The best way to get out of it's never to have gotten in it. But now that we are in it, I hope, now that we're in it, I hope for a speedy resolution, mainly because I don't want to put our daughters and sons who are our soldiers at risk for longer than need be. So the quicker we finish this, the better. I also think that it's not good for the economy, not for good for the country, and ultimately not good for Republicans in the election. I mean, as long as gasoline stays $4 or $5 a gallon, it's going to be devastating on the election. So the sooner we can be done with this, the better. But if you want to have a resolution and you want them to perhaps give up their enriched uranium, there's going to have to be some sort of diplomatic give and take. And I think the Iranians aren't going to do it just because they're defeated militarily. Yeah. They are defeated militarily, utterly and completely defeated. But unless you want to go in and occupy them, you still have to trade something. And so, you know, previous agreements have released money. I think there's a possibility you either have to release money or lessen sanctions in exchange for them giving up their nuclear enrichment. Okay. I still think it's possible, but most diplomacy responds, you give something, you get something.
But, Senator, you just mentioned the midterms. The president is saying he doesn't care about the midterms right now, that it's a more important principle to make sure Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Don't you think that should be the focus rather than politics?
Well, the thing is the people in charge are still radical mullahs. Some people say they're more radical than the people we killed. Some people say they're less. But I don't know if you're talking about, well, how do we get a believable? People have said, how do we get a believable peace? Sure, we want that. And I think that is important. But it's ultimately going to require negotiation. Military might isn't going to deplete their enriched uranium nor stop their thought process and ability to create nuclear weapons. So it still ultimately requires negotiation, and I'm all for that progressing as rapidly as possible.
And getting a peace deal. Absolutely. All right, let's get to FISA reform. Section 702 of the Surveillance Act expires at the end of the month. The president insists we need these protections to keep the border secure, prevent terror. You say it's a violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. How do you think we get a way forward there? How do we preserve legitimate terror fighting tools while also protecting our sacred civil liberties, sir?
Well, you could just spy on foreigners. It's called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's supposed to be about spying on foreigners. But what happens is if you have talked to a Middle East correspondent who's talked to somebody else who might be a member of some fringe group over there, and I've spoken to you, somehow I'm in the database. And they really shouldn't have the right to search an American in the database. If you want to search an American, you should get a warrant. But even then, any information you get should be about terrorism, not about common domestic crime, because the information was gathered with a less than constitutional fashion. People need to remember they use this system and they use this intelligence power to go after Donald Trump. President Obama, as he was leaving office in 2016, they never thought in their wildest dreams that Donald Trump would win. But as they did, they weaponized the intelligence community against him. They used this 702 against him. And so Republicans who support Donald Trump should be up in arms and say, no more. We're not going to let them abuse Republicans, conservative, Donald Trump, or anybody else. This system should only be used on foreigners.
On foreigners, absolutely. That weaponization got out of control. You make an important point there during the Obama and Biden years. Senator Rand Paul, appreciate your time, sir.
All right, thanks.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.